Welcome to Mission Reboot. We are here doing our digital literacy series. Our goal is to help you come home and stay home, and today our focus is on digital footprints. So we're going to kick this off with our team. We have Lauren, who is our resident data geek nerd whisperer.
It's like a lot of things that you just about me there.
Hello.
And of course, we have Saad, which you've seen a lot in these episodes, and you'll continue to see in Josh. In our earlier episodes, we have already covered basic digital skills 101. Yeah. We talked about the difference between kind of technically knowing something and really understanding it, which is kind of where we get more into the literacy. We had a whole conversation around social media because what we recognized is that there, especially for folks when they're coming home, the platform sometimes you feel the most comfortable with, that feel the most accessible, is actually social media.
Yeah.
So this conversation,
and Facebook more specifically.
Yeah, like the ability to connect there. So if you have been following along with us, that's kind of where we've tracked. We are going to be wrapping up this part of the series around this idea of digital footprints. And so let me ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
Who knows what a digital footprint is?
I do.
I've
been waiting for this one.
She's ready.
Here we go. Go ahead.
All right, so let's see. So I read an article and it said, digital footprint, if you think about it as if you are a person walking on a beach.
Okay.
So when you leave prison, every step you take online, you're creating a footprint in the sand. The only difference is the water doesn't wash it away.
Yeah. Ooh, metaphorically.
It's like stepping in concrete before it hardens.
Yeah.
Josh is like, just like I put my thumb in the concrete.
And for me, that made it crystallize.
Yeah.
What is digital footprint? And it also brings, into focus why it's so important, especially for individuals who maybe the last thing that was said about you online was something negative.
Yeah.
Do you want to keep that story going?
Yep.
Because the internet is unforgiving.
Truly. So just for clarification for anyone, one that was absolutely a good example, if you're trying to think about how to wrap your mind, and again, literacy is about understanding, right? So I don't want to just like give you a definition and you don't get it. So I like that quote because I feel like that helps you understand. If you've ever been to the beach and you walk with no socks or shoes on the beach, your footprint is actually in the sand.
Indeed.
And I like the idea of washing it away. So the definition of a digital footprint is the data that you leave behind, whether you mean to or not. So here's some examples of data that you could leave behind. So social media posts, photos, videos, online comments, things that you say underneath other people's pages. If you go, let's say, to dinner and you add your location tag and people know they were at this restaurant, your shopping habits. So, there's something nice about flossing. And also when people see you with like your very expensive, Prada and Louis Vuitton, that is actually a digital footprint that you're leaving. Yeah. Phone calls, text messages, emails, online chat. So those are all things that are considered active. Passive digital footprints also exist. That's your social security number. It's your tax information, your medical records. You may not know this, but like every time you use your computer anywhere, your IP location, your IP address, your internet browsing history is a passive one. And also the make and model of your car. Right. So I think these are important things because there's what we intend to show.
Yeah.
And then there's things that we may not intentionally, show, but it is a collection of things.
Indeed. Yeah. And I wonder, the aggregation of all this information, does it form a picture of us as individuals to all of the companies, all of the millions of companies out there that want to profile who we are as consumers, want to profile who we are as people, as active citizens? I mean, it's very profound when you think about it from a standpoint of how much information you can just leave behind by simply clicking.
And one thing also is that if you're on one particular website, it's not that your footprint exists just on that website.
Yeah, exactly.
Websites actually sell your data to each other. So if I know Saad clicked on a picture of a Jeep, and I'm a car dealer, I would like to buy that data from the website that knows that.
Yeah.
And so now I learn about sod. And so your digital footprint exists across all of these websites, and it's really a mosaic of who you are, all these little touch points. And that's how companies begin to profile you.
Indeed.
Can I ask
This is
you-
kind of scary, right?
I mean, like, you don't have to be. I mean, you should be a little alarmed. But so let's talk a little bit about, for you guys, especially in the context of coming home, because again, remember, this is all centered around, peer coaching and giving people some things to think about, maybe even in advance. When did you have a moment in which you recognized, like, oh, I'm coming home and this is kind of what the internet thinks of me?
Yeah.
Or not?
Yeah. So I don't know if I had that level of thought.
Okay.
Like that's a mature thought.
Okay.
And I think coming home and just being on the internet, I was just trying to find my way and figure out, what am I going to use? Why am I using it? And what are other people using and all of that. But there was something interesting that happened to me when I turned 50. So what I noticed was at about 49, AARP starts knocking at people's door. You guys haven't reached that age yet?
Got a little bit of time.
What is that?
Whatever. Kid.
No.
But anyway, but what I realized, it took about until I was 54 for them to find me. So they didn't. So what it meant was, during my season of incarceration, I got off the grid.
Yeah.
They knew nothing about me.
Yeah.
So it was almost as if I died in a sense.
Yeah.
I didn't exist
Day to death.
to people. Ooh,
I like that
interesting.
term for myself.
Yeah.
Death.
Yeah.
Might have to write a paper. Go
Yeah,
ahead. Sorry.
but anyway, yeah.
I see a scholarly production
Yeah.
coming.
There's a grant on the way.
Yeah, and maybe we'll get AARP to sponsor. But
Yeah,
anyway,
honestly.
no, but it took years, and I started watching all of my friends who were getting, AARP. Got my card today.
Yeah.
And we were wondering. I was like, I wonder what did I do that I finally hit the grid?
Yep.
Right.
Like 4 or
What
5
was that
years
triggering
later,
event?
Yeah.
that they were like, wait a minute.
There's someone who doesn't.
How did you get here?
Found
And then all of a sudden they, I started like, here's your card, here's this, that, and the other. But it took a while. So what it meant was, to some degree, I was cautious about my data footprint. I wasn't intentional about it, but I was definitely cautious about it, to the point that they didn't know I existed for about 3 or 4 years.
So, like, what's interesting is part of what you're saying, I feel like, let's have a conversation about the ability to internet search yourselves. Have any of you actually, like, looked yourselves up online on the internet?
Yeah, every once in a while.
Okay.
I feel like most people are gonna like, oh, what comes up when you search my name?
Okay.
Yeah. And uniquely, this is my daughter on her Chromebook will search daddy. And I, on my laptop, will search sod, right? And so 2 totally different search results come up.
Interesting.
Her search results show a lot of LinkedIn activity, a lot of articles, a lot of postings from the state of Delaware. Mine will show a variety of cases, a variety of not so positive information from way back.
Yep.
And it's difficult to understand where they aggregate these results from, because she on her Chromebook, that's a very new process for her.
Yeah.
But for me, I tend to see the same results every time I Google myself.
I have a theory.
Yeah. Interesting to hear.
Your notebook and your devices know it's you.
Oh, well, so the internet always knows. The internet knows
Right?
who's looking and what information.
And
you
she's
probably
just generically searching,
Yeah.
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 and they're aggregating everything else she's searching.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, when I first came home, I would go on the internet just to be on the internet, right? I literally was so fascinated by the World Wide Web and all of the different locations. I imagined it as a city and storefronts. Like I was just shop diving, going in and out, in and out, in and out. Now, I don't go to a search engine unless I have a specific task I'm seeking to accomplish or a piece of information that I'm looking for. I don't just browse. Like I don't just pop websites and jump. And so I wonder what my digital footprint would have looked like back then without the intentionality of seeking specifics.
Yeah.
And so that's something to think about. But I do Google myself, and I wonder if there's, I always try to strategize it so that I'm volume pushing good information to kind of push the old stuff down.
Because you realize that it's not like in the real world you walk into a store, you window shop, whatever.
Yeah.
You haven't given anything, and then you walk out. Online, you have given something as soon as you even search for the store.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's tracked. One of the other things that's interesting about, hey, you said they know it's you. You're on the same Wi-Fi. Those devices are connected to the same entry point to the internet, so they know they can correlate. Okay, these people are related or friends or family. And another thing about searching yourself, I was talking to a woman recently. And she has two names. She goes by these different names, and I was like, "Hey, which one do I call you?" And she's like, "Well, here's why I actually have this second name I started using, because if you search me by my real first name, all of these articles come up. And so professionally, I've started using my middle name, right? Because now when people search for this, nothing comes up.
Yeah.
And so there's some strategy I think you should be aware of and consider if this is a factor.
So Mom and I had this conversation for her, and we talk about this, which is relevant, right? So if you have that was more of a public facing case, or depending upon where you live, if there's not a lot of news that comes out, right, your case becomes
You might be the biggest
you might
news.
be the biggest thing that happened, right?
Not in a good way.
Right. And I think that there's this in Europe, there's this term called the right to be forgotten. And the question is, on the internet, do we have the right to be forgotten? And it's it's a ton of people who debate it on a philosophical level. We are clearly not there. So I think because you don't right now have the right to be forgotten, you do have the ability to create more data, right? And this is where the concept of a digital footprint is important, because if you're not intentional about it, the internet, regardless, is going to figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And you can either leave it up to the algorithms to say, oh, this person likes to eat nice things, they like to buy nice things, they are hanging out with these people.
Yeah. And they have a record.
And it's like, we think that this is who you are. And I think this is where even tools like LinkedIn posts or blog posts, or just being mindful of what you're feeding into the searching. Because, we said this before, the truth is, technically people should not be searching you online, but when you go to apply for housing, when you go to apply for a job,
Absolutely.
For sure.
depending upon banking, right, you might apply for a loan, and a loan officer, because in the end, all people are trying to figure out is, who are you?
Yeah.
And are you a good bet?
Right? And the internet is going to tell them what they think.
Are you a good bet? Should I take the risk?
100%.
Yeah.
Risk mitigation is an entire industry.
Yeah. 100%.
And there are services that serve up some of this information for employers, for companies that are trying to get a profile on, in order to give you a loan or hire you. So it is definitely a really
R3 Score does that.
Yeah.
Stick around.
In a different way.
Yeah.
100%. So I think in terms of creating, so I know you said that you searched yourself. Have you guys ever done an image search of yourself? Have you gone far enough to see what what pictures the internet attaches to your name?
Yeah, I'm not happy about the pictures they chose.
Really? From a vanity standpoint, or because because of how I look?
Yeah, they're me.
Okay, got it.
Okay, what's going on here, Josh?
Why did they pick that one?
So I think one of the things, for me, I sometimes cringe when I see people share content. Like, I saw someone took a flight, and they put their TSA pre-check thing up there, and I was like, it feels like a lot of information.
That is a lot of
right.
information.
So, are there things that you would advise people
Overshare.
not put on the internet, right, from a security standpoint?
Yeah.
Got my new driver's license.
Driver's license.
Driver's license.
Right.
Yeah, no, all of that personal identifying information, right? So what you're putting out should always be limited to that which is public domain. Meaning, if you Google sod, if you go into records, certainly you could do a parcel search and figure out who the owner of a property is. That's all public record, right? All of these things are public record. a driver's license, your home address, all of those things, it's almost like you're inviting trouble, waiting for the universe to send it to you.
Yeah.
And so I would definitely hesitate if someone was posting that information.
Yeah, I get it that, we're in a time where people are trying to, as you said, floss and say, look at me.
Yeah.
So
I got clear, I got TSA pre-check, but
and it was like the barcode and everything. I was
wow.
like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh,
No,
this
that's a
feels
lot.
the interesting thing about a barcode is like I lost my ID, but I had to upload it for something. When I went to the store, I forgot I didn't have my ID one day with me.
Yeah.
I showed that picture. They were able to scan that barcode.
Yeah.
And it was as if I had the ID on me.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the fact that somebody had the barcode.
Yeah. It's like the ID. So I think one of the things that's also important, to encourage people from a digital footprint safety standpoint, do not post your physical location when you are eating, right? Like that's a habit of mine because I travel often for work and I'm, by myself sometimes and I'm a woman.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, I'm like, when you see what restaurant I was at, I am no longer at that restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And there have been some instances where, famous people actually have been murdered, right? Because you are going live on social media about, hey, I'm here at this location.
And you've got jewelry on.
Right? And it kind of goes to shopping habits, right? And I think that there is an element of, again, it's the way that we talk about social media in the earlier episode. I feel like this is relevant also to digital footprint because it's a weird dance. Like you want to show your highlight reel, right? Like especially, let's say, for example, this is something that you've worked really hard.
And we have highlight reels.
Right?
Now,
And you're
y'all.
winning, right? Like, I'm
highlights.
finally a winner.
I had some
want y'all to
low light
see me
reels.
winning.
They got out
And it's
there.
like, right, and so it's this trade-off of I want the reward of people knowing that I'm doing well. I want people to feel like I'm doing well. And you also have to balance though, like and when I give that up, right, which I put something out for the feeling, except for what could come back. And what could come back
and
is
we're
something
business
that's not
people,
safe.
so there's a part of social media where you can't transact business only.
Yeah.
People want insight.
They wanna know who
into
you
who
are.
are you.
People
Yeah.
want to
A little
relate
bit.
to you.
Yeah.
So there's a thin line, but I think this goes back to what I say, which is you just got to have your own plan, your own strategy.
Yeah.
Where are your lines?
Yeah.
And what are you trying to accomplish? Now that we understand that we're putting, prints on the internet that will not go away, what do we want to leave out there?
Yeah.
And so for me, I always think of my grandson. It's like, when I'm no longer here, what do I want him to see?
Yeah.
What do I want him to know about me? And so for me, that determines, what opportunities I take, because what I recognize, some opportunities are not the right opportunity for me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't fit the brand that I've established for myself or how I want to show up, in the world, and
That is-
online.
so that's one of the episodes that is like a future one for this series is thinking about yourself and rebranding yourself. And so, we are intentional in how we're having these conversations because I think when we get to this idea of the truth of the matter is, especially if you are formerly incarcerated, you have to think of yourself as a brand.
Yeah.
And you really do need a refresh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that this is, it goes in line with a lot of what we're saying because you don't want to put yourself in a position where the last thing that's visible about you is potentially a thing you want everybody to forget. Right.
Yeah.
I would say just kind of as we prepare to close out on this, I think one of the things, and while we do this, you guys start thinking about like either one piece of advice you would give people, and if you've already given all your advice, kind of maybe even one thing that you might be interested in at the beginning of the year. So even for your own digital footprint, something that you might want to consider. But I, as you guys think about that, I'll just, say, I just recently heard something, and hopefully it'd be helpful to think about, is kind of think about the one person or the two people in your life who you would be embarrassed if they saw something, right? And when you're trying to decide, should I post this? Think if my mom, my grandma, my kid, my aunt, whoever that person is, like my boss, right? If they saw this,
Yeah.
how would I feel, right? Sometimes you need this like litmus test, or that was a science term, sorry. Sometimes you need this internal test, right, to determine should I post it, because like even in a professional setting, sometimes I debate like, should I put myself in a bathing suit?
Yeah.
Right. And what does it say? And it's also this awkward
And it's
dance
not
of like
just how you would look at it.
yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
it's like
it really isn't.
it's like
It's not like,
okay,
oh, I look good, I should
right?
be
And
in
because
this.
my social media pages are open pages, it's like if I right before I go in a business meeting. So it's always it's a trade off, right? Where it's like I'm not the string bikini girl anyway, right? So like
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna be that person, but I also recognize I have heard stories of young women in business saying like they found out that before a business meeting somebody was on their social media page and like they made a weird like they made it weird for them of
Yeah.
like I saw your yellow bathing suit. It's like
And
I don't think I'm gonna have this conversation with you.
even if somebody doesn't, it still influences people's perception.
We can't unsee or know these things.
Yeah.
So
And before we go there,
Yeah.
Josh said something that I think is really important about the would you want your boss to see it? What we know over the last several years, we've seen people get fired from their jobs.
yeah, for social
Being
media
at
posts,
protest,
A blog, or,
running outside doing
Something
something, and
politically-
something online.
somebody
Yeah.
films them and they put it on online and it goes viral, and then the next day, your employer says,
terminated.
yeah, because
No longer.
Because now you're bringing risk onto the
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the blowback. It's the blowback. Yeah.
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 And it attaches to their brand. And what you didn't reflect their brand. Now, you weren't working, you weren't representing, but you're an extension of that brand.
Yeah.
So those are things that we have to kind of think about.
Yeah, and now let's take it a step further, because there's supervision that takes place post release.
Let's go ahead and deal with that.
Your probation officer, your potential reentry court, your drug court, your veterans court, your problem solving post release supervision arm. They have access to the exact same information.
Yep.
All they need is a Facebook account, which anyone can create a Facebook account in a matter of 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And they can find you. All of this information is out there.
They know
Do
exactly
you want
where you
that?
were,
Yeah.
what you were eating, who you were eating with.
Absolutely.
They know about that yellow bathing suit.
Yeah,
if
like
you-
all the things.
They know everything.
And people will make judgments even if you're reposting something that somebody else
Yeah, you didn't make
Yeah.
the content.
It's not your content. They will make a judgment and say, oh, why is this person posting about this, this Glock or whatever,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
this particular thing. And it's like, do I need to pay attention to this case a little bit more?
Yeah.
Indeed.
So
Yep. All right. So, one piece of advice, if you have it, or one thing that you personally are going to consider for your own kind of digital footprint and digital presence this year. Let's go first.
One piece of advice that I would give people is know what you want your message to be. As we're talking about rebranding ourselves, building a new life, building a new image, starting a new career, starting a new page. Know what you want. I want people to know me to be a man of good values, a family man, a businessman, someone who's upstanding, someone who will take the trash out for my elderly neighbor. Those kinds of dimensions all form a picture. So have an idea of who you want to be as you're developing your image. Don't leave it to chance. Don't leave it to, I'm just putting a lot of different pieces of myself up and let someone else form that picture, because you may not be happy with the outcome.
Awesome.
yeah. One of the things, especially those of us who have what the world views as a unique story. Not a lot of people have gone to prison or dealt with incarceration, or it's interesting to people sometimes.
Sure.
And so sometimes there are people who come home and then they realize, hey, the voice I had that was silenced, now all of a sudden people want to hear it
Yeah.
because it's unique.
Yeah.
And so some people find when you talk about branding, hey, I can create a brand representing what I've just lived through and representing people who don't have that voice yet.
Yeah.
And so there is an opportunity. It is a platform. What I say about the internet is it has accelerated the speed of information transfer. So I can get my information out to thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, or even millions. And so I've seen people, and I have friends who have done this, and it has benefited them. It's been a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get
Always is.
weird outreach. Hey, I'd love to meet, and it's like, all right, cool, yeah, you're up for it. And then
Sure.
it's like, I should not have done this.
I bet you.
So again, intentionality, and you can navigate. It can be a benefit, but also don't feel pressured to do this. You don't have to. And if you're not sure, then just take a step back. I mean, caution, you know, is you know, the better side of judgment, right? So
Indeed.
just kind of be cautious. And then if you are cautious, you don't have to be super fearful. You know,
Yeah.
hey, everywhere I go, people are tracking and
Yeah.
you know, it's not a
You don't want to become
conspiracy.
paranoid about
You
it.
don't,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but just be mindful. There's always a ripple effect.
Mm-hmm.
Every action has a consequence, kind of thing. But it's not that serious always.
I'm laughing because I was thinking about. I saw a picture of you once at a game, and I was like, "Hey, you were at the game." You're like,
Oh yes.
"Yeah, but how did you know that? I didn't post
Yeah.
anything." I was like, oh,
Someone I know
somebody I
posted it.
know
Yeah.
posted you were at the game."
I was.
You're like, but are we friends? You're
Like,
like,
yeah, you're like, but are we friends? I'm like,
Yeah.
but I know somebody who knows you.
we have
I-
mutual friends and they posted it, right?
It
Which
was-
is a passive digital footprint. That's one of the things,
Exactly.
pictures that other
Passive,
people
yeah.
post of you.
It's
Yeah.
like a picture.
Right, yeah.
And the reason is because I was moving out of the country
Yeah.
or going back, and I hadn't really told anybody.
Yeah.
But I was with this person who obviously I told, and they took a picture and said, "Hey, my friend's about to leave the country," and posted it online. I didn't even know.
And Josh is like,
And then we were having a call
That's a
like
lot
the
of
next day.
information,
And I
guys.
was
And
like,
and then the
"So
next
you're
day-
leaving, you're going. What does this
Yeah.
mean? You
I
know,
was
we're
like-
talking about working together. Are we not going to be able to work together?" He's
I was
like,
like, what's
"What?"
going on?
it's like, how do you have all this? But to
Yeah.
be honest, that is a very good
Yeah.
point about a passive digital footprint. The pictures that other people post of you, the information that other people share about you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we
You
had
don't
this
That you don't
that you
control.
don't control, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's also that piece. But go ahead.
Yeah. So for me this year, I think I'm going to be more intentional about walking on the sand.
The digital.
I'm going to do more because I did a lot for a period of time and it carried me. But then when kind of the world got a little wonky and people were fighting a lot,
were weird.
I had to
Yeah.
take a step back because I didn't like the energy.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be in social media fights. I didn't want to get into camps. I didn't want to, figure out all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I just took a break from it.
Yeah.
But I feel like today, where I am, I have something to say. I want to contribute, so I'm going to contribute. But I'm, mindful about what that looks like. And I have a strategy.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of moving forward. This is part of the strategy.
It's part of the strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sticking with us for these series of what we feel like are kind of foundational conversations. As we teed up, there's some things coming up around branding, establishing your branding, also thinking about kind of active ways that you can prepare for some of these things. As a reminder, this entire series, we know that there are some topics that you can do nothing with today. Right. But we do want to make sure that you are thinking about it because oftentimes these conversations are not included in any reentry planning intentionally. So
It really isn't.
And preparing is what you can do today.
100%.
To think about, most of us in prison, we're dreaming about who we're going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah,
who you're going to be, start thinking about it.
You're gonna be
and
online,
that digital
yeah.
footprint
Yeah.
needs to match that vision you have in your head.
100%.
Indeed.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.